Convex is a service that's changing the game for backends. We no longer have to set up APIs or servers. It's just real-time data that reacts instantly with our applications. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to build a modern to-do list app in SwiftUI using Convex, a backend as a service that's faster, simpler, and way more reactive than Firebase or Supabase. So we are going to get started by setting up Convex, creating and querying our data to ultimately build an iOS application from scratch in SwiftUI that updates in real time as we modify our data, all in one single workflow. So let's go ahead and get started. And before we get started with the tutorial, make sure you guys check us out at appstuff.io, where we have a bunch of professional iOS development courses, including things on interview prep, fundamentals, where we just launched this brand new AI and machine learning course for iOS developers, pro app clones, where we build real life apps like Instagram, Threads, and Airbnb and Tinder from scratch with a full backend included. And also our Pro Plus series that teaches you how to build apps at a production level like they do at Meta, Apple, and Google, where these apps can handle millions of users at scale, guys. And if you want access to all of this material, you can become a member with us for a monthly cost of just $42 a month. And that gets you access to tens of thousands of dollars worth of material here on our site. So make sure you guys check us out at appstuff.io if you want to further your iOS development journey, whether you're trying to get a job or build that dream app that you've always wanted to launch. But anyway, guys, now let's get back to the tutorial. So we are going to be following along with a tutorial that comes directly from the Convex documentation. So the link for this will be in the description. You guys can head over to docs.convex.dev/quickstart/Swift. And this will walk us through setting up our Convex project and building an iOS application to utilize our Convex backend. So before we get started, let's talk about what you need in order to build this. So this quick start assumes that you have a Mac with Xcode. So you need a Mac computer and you need Xcode installed, which is the IDE we're going to be using to build our application. If you don't have that, you can just head over to the Mac App Store, search for Xcode up at the top, and download the Xcode IDE and then return to this video. You are also going to need Node and NPM installed. If you don't have these tools, make sure you take the time to install them first. All right, guys, so now let's go ahead and jump into Xcode and create a new project. So once you have Xcode opened up, go ahead and go to File and then select New and then Project. Alternatively, you can hit Command-Shift-N to create a new project. We are going to make sure that our platform is iOS and we select App. We're going to hit Next. I'm going to call this Convex Tutorial. And make sure you guys don't need a team selected, but make sure the interface is SwiftUI, not Storyboard. Make sure the language is Swift. We don't need a testing system or a storage system. And then we are going to hit Next. And then let's just go ahead and hit Create. So this is going to create our iOS app project for us. And we should see that we have this canvas open up, and this is going to be the preview for our iOS application. And this is the code over here on the left that is responsible for generating that preview. So we can see here that we just have an image and a text that says hello world. And this code is directly responsible for rendering out this preview that we see here. So this is eventually where we're going to build out our user interface, but let's go back to the tutorial documentation really quickly and see what we need to do first to get set up. So I'm going to head over to Google Chrome. We've created our project, so step one is good to go. Now we need to configure our dependencies. So we're going to go ahead and add what is known as a dependency to our project, and we're going to do so using the Swift Package Manager. So go ahead and make sure that we copy this GitHub URL here. This is for the repository for the code that we are going to need to integrate into our project. Let's get Xcode open back up. And guys, you can go to File and add package dependencies. And this is where we can integrate third-party APIs or libraries into our project using this built-in tool known as the Swift Package Manager. So we are going to go and paste that in here, and we are going to select this package, and then we're going to hit Add Package here. And Once that completes downloading, we are just going to say add package, and we're going to notice something happen on the left side of our Xcode window here. We now have package dependencies installed. So this is all of the third-party code that we are going to need to integrate and utilize Convex from within our project. So step 2 is now complete. So let's get the documentation open back up and take a look at step 3. Now it's time for us to install our Convex backend. So we are going to open up a terminal and cd into our project directory. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a terminal window here, and I am going to cd into my project directory. And the easiest way to do this is open up your Finder and just go ahead and find your project that you just created and go ahead and drag that folder in to get the path to that particular folder and hit enter. And we should notice that we are now inside of our project directory. If we hit ls, we see that these are the files that are listed in that directory. I actually spelled that wrong. That's my bad. But now that we've done that, guys, let's go ahead and see if we can run these commands. So we need to run npm init-y. So let's do that. And it looks like that creates some sort of configuration for us. And then we need to say npm install convex. So next up, we're going to say npm install convex. And it looks like it added 4 packages here and it found 0 vulnerabilities or issues. So we are good to go. Next up, we need to start the Convex deployment. So we're going to run npx convex dev to actually start deploying our server here. So npx convex dev. And we'll see what that gives us back. So we want to create a new project here. We just need to go through this setup. Let's hit enter there. Project name, Convex tutorial, that I spelled wrong. So we're just going to hit enter there to create that. And we can see our project was successfully created. You guys may have been prompted to log in or create a Convex account. I highly recommend doing that. They will walk you through the account creation process step by step. It was super simple for me. I think it took less than a minute. And the reason you want to do that is to get access to this dashboard here. So I'm going to pull up the dashboard for the completed project so that we can see what this looks like. It has a table visualization tool so that we can view and manage all of our data and then see that updating in real time with our application. And you can only get access to this if you log in or set up and create an account. So now that we've set up our back end, let's head back to the documentation and take a look at the next step in this process. So now it's time to create some sample data for our database. So we can see here that we have some very simple data that models out a task for our to-do list. It just has a title and a Boolean flag to represent if it's completed or not. So let's go ahead and just create this mock data. You guys can literally just copy this code, and we're going to head back over to Xcode to create this file. So guys, in this main folder here, not the actual project name, but the first folder underneath that, let's go ahead and hit Command N to create a new file. And in the filter bar up at the top here, we're going to just go ahead and create an empty file. So it should be all the way down at the bottom in other, and we're just going to create an empty file here. And we are going to call this sample data.json. In the tutorial, they say .jsonl. I'm not sure exactly what that is. This will work just fine if you just used a .json extension. So let's just go ahead and hit create, and we can paste our code in here. So something interesting about this is it's not encapsulated within square brackets. So I think we need to do that. So we need to go ahead and just put a square bracket at the beginning and the end of this so that we can recognize that this is an array of data. And then I think we also need to add commas after the first 2 items in here. So just make sure your data is correctly formatted there, and let's head back to the documentation and see what we need to do next. So step 6, we need to add the sample data to our table called tasks in our database. So we've set up our data. Now we need to upload it to our database, and we can use this command to do that. But before we do that, we need to make sure this file is in the correct location. So what I want you guys to do is get your Finder opened up, and we created that 1 layer too deep. We just used Xcode for the convenience of creating that file. So go ahead and get into your Convex tutorial folder. Go ahead into this Convex tutorial folder, find the sample JSON file, and just drag it out into the main folder directory. We don't want it to be within there, because we need to ultimately be able to find that file when we run this command. So just extract that one layer out, and we are going to go back to our terminal and we are going to run this command here. So copy that, get terminal up, and let's go ahead. And we actually need to create a new tab in our terminal. So go to your terminal and hit Command T. The reason for this is because this terminal window has like a live connection to our database. So we can't run commands here unless we terminate that process. So let's go and create a new tab. We should be in our Convex tutorial folder, and go ahead and run that command. And you guys should notice, we need to delete that L at the end of it because we just saved it as a .json file. So now this should work. Perfect. Check that out. We imported this data. We have 3 tasks, and we have added 3 documents to that task table. So our database is beautifully set up here. So what we now should be able to do is go back to the main terminal window that is running our backend connection, and we should see this URL here. So we can go ahead and copy and paste this into our browser. Make sure you guys are using a Google Chrome browser here. This did not play nice with me when I was using Safari. So let's go ahead and paste that URL in there. And we should see our database dashboard show up. And this is super, super cool. And we could head over to this data tab, and we will see our 3 items in that database. So guys, we just completely set up a localized database to our application here using this Convex tool. So this is super, super cool. That's all the effort it took to stand up a backend. We didn't have to set up Firebase or Supabase or have any servers or API configurations or anything like that. So I really think this is an awesome tool, and I plan on using this quite a bit in my future development. So now that our database is set up, let's head back to the documentation. So now it's time to actually be able to query our data. So we need to expose a database query, and we are going to use TypeScript to do this. So we need to create a tasks.typescript file in our Convex directory within our Swift project with the following contents. So let's go ahead and do the same thing we just did for our sample JSON file. We can create this from within Xcode, drag it one layer back in our project directory, and just to make sure that Convex can properly read this data. So let's go ahead and copy this code, go back to Xcode, create an empty file, and it's just going to have a .ts extension. So we're going to say empty, go scroll down to other, empty. We're going to say tasks.ts and create. And you guys can see that Xcode recognizes it as a TypeScript file. Let's just go ahead and copy that code in there and go back to our Finder and drag this out one layer. So we should have that opened up to the correct directory there. Just go ahead and do the drop down for your Convex tutorial. This has all of our project files. And then we're going to drag this out one layer. And we should notice that it removes from our project window there. So now our database is completely set up. We have data uploaded to our database, and we have our query logic set up as well. So now it's time to actually start building out our iOS application. So guys, get Xcode opened up, and we are going to hop into our content view, and we are going to start by building out the user interface for our application. Then we are going to execute our database query to actually fetch the data and display it in our UI. So really quickly, I'll just show you guys what the completed project is going to look like. Once again, it's going to be a really, really simple vertically scrollable list of data where each item is going to represent a task, and we're going to have a check mark to help us determine if that task is completed or not. So let's go ahead and do that now. So we are going to go ahead and delete all of this code from within the body here. So you should just have a blank body, and we're going to create a navigation stack. And then from within that, you're just going to open up 2 brackets. And then from within that, we're going to create a list. And from within this list, we are going to create a for each loop, guys. And you're going to open up a parenthesis, and you're going to say from 0 up to like 5, right? 0 but less than 5. And then after that, you're going to create an opening curly bracket and say task in. So right now, we don't have our data model set up yet. But what we're going to do is just create a text component, and we could just say test item. So we can see here that this automatically in our preview creates a list for us with 5 items in it, and it just says test item for each one. So what we ultimately need to do for this application is create a data model, and that is going to represent each one of our tasks, put those into an array, fetch them from our database, and then display them in our UI here. So let's go, the next step in this process is going to be creating our data model. So right underneath import Swift UI, but above your content view struct, we're going to create another struct. And this is similar to a class, and it's going to be called task, or we could call this to do. Swift has a built-in task object, so we don't want to make those names conflict with each other. So we could just call this to do, or we could call it task item, up to you, doesn't matter. So what we're going to do is create first an ID property. It's going to be underscore ID, and it's going to be a string. So guys, we are modeling this directly after what our data looks like in our database. So if we go ahead and open that up really quickly, let's go back to Google Chrome and let's go to our database table. We can see here that we have this ID property, this is completed flag, this text flag, and this creation time, right? So we don't need the creation time. We're just going to work with these three properties here. ID is completed and text. So when we define these properties in our struct, we need to make sure that the keys match up exactly with how they appear in our database. So when we fetch the data, it successfully decodes that object or maps into our data object. So let's go back to Xcode. So we have our underscore ID property there. Then we're going to have let is completed, which is a Boolean, and we're going to have let text, which is a string. So this is our data model, right? So next up, we're going to go and create a structure or a property to store all of our data. So in your content view, go above the body variable, and we're going to create what is known as a state variable here. So we're going to say at state private var tasks, and this is going to be of type task item. And it's going to, we could just for now give it some mock data. We could say equal and open up two square brackets. And here, guys, we could just say like dot init. We could give it an ID of 1, is completed is false, text is item 1. And then we could just go ahead and create a couple more mock items. We could say is completed is true, ID is 2, ID is 3. And then we could say item 3, and we could maybe say like buy groceries here or something, right? It doesn't matter. So now that we have our data model as well as some mock data, let's go ahead and go back to our for each loop, and we can just loop through our tasks. So you guys will notice that we're getting an error in our compiler. It says we need to conform to this identifiable protocol. Essentially, Swift UI needs to be able to uniquely identify each one of these items so that it can correctly render the data. So we can just go ahead and attach an ID property from within our for each loop. So go ahead and add a comma after tasks and just say ID \self. So we will tell this to uniquely identify each item. We still have an error, so let's click on that X. We see that we just need to make this conform to the hashable protocol. So if we go back up to our item struct or task item, you can just add a colon and say hashable, and you will notice that that error goes away. So now we're looping through our tasks array, so we can see that we only have 3 items because we only have 3 items in our array here. And then we get access to each task from within this closure. So let's go ahead and see if we can display some actual task data. So I want to just say task.text. And we'll see here that it's now populating our list with data that is coming from our array here. So to get our data looking like the completed application, we need to actually add a check mark at the end of that if the item is completed. So to do this, we're going to wrap this up inside of an H stack. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this code and cut it, and then create an H stack, which is a horizontal stack of items. And then I'm going to paste that back in there. And then I'm going to add a spacer because I want this item to be on the right edge of the screen. So I want to fill all this blank space. And then I'm just going to say if task.isCompleted, I want to create an image with a system name of checkmark.circle.fill. So Xcode has these awesome built-in system images for us. And we're just going to give it a foreground style of .green. So that's it for our UI, right? That looks really, really smooth. And next up, guys, all we need to do is fetch our actual data from our database and display it in our application here. So let's hop back into the documentation and see how we need to set up our client to ultimately fetch our data. So I'm going to open Google Chrome back up here. I'm going to go back to the documentation, and we've already created the UI. We've created our struct. So next up, we need to create our client, which is what we see here. So we need to get the deployment URL of our dev server with this command. So guys, go ahead and grab this command here, cat.env.local grep convex URL. Let's copy that. Let's go back to the terminal and let's run this command inside of the terminal that doesn't have that open connection here. So you'll see a dot in the upper left-hand corner of the terminal. So we don't want to be using that one. That means it has an ongoing process open. Let's go back to that other tab and run this command. And we can see here that this is our convex URL, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this URL. And we are going to go back to our Swift code, Xcode beta, or, I'm using the beta. And then guys, at the top of the file, we need to import Convex Mobile. So this is what we did back in the beginning of the video when we installed this package dependency. We're now importing this framework, and I'm going to create my client here now. So I'm going to say let client equal to convex client with this deployment URL that we have here. So that is what I got from my terminal. So the last piece of this puzzle is going to be creating a function that actually utilizes this client to fetch data from our database. So let's go ahead and create that function now and then call that function, and we'll see that we'll be done. So we're going to create a func to fetch our tasks. This is going to be an asynchronous function. And I'm going to paste this code in here that comes directly from the documentation. So, and I will just break this down really quickly. First off, guys, we notice that we get an error here. We need to make our task item conform to this decodable protocol. So let's go back up to the top with our struct definition and go ahead and say comma decodable here. And essentially, this is a protocol that just automatically parses incoming JSON data to successfully create our struct based on that incoming JSON. So we don't have to write that parsing code ourselves. So it's super convenient. And last but not least, we need to also go up to the top and import Combine. So this is a framework that Convex uses here within their package dependency to ultimately subscribe to updates on that database. So anytime changes happen on that table, we are subscribed to that particular table with our tasks.get function so that we will receive updates whenever they happen on that table because we are subscribed to that table. And we notice that we have one final error in our compiler. It says errors thrown from here are not handled. So essentially what we need to do is just wrap this up in a do catch block. So let's highlight this code here with command and hit Command X to cut it, say do, paste it in, and then say catch. And here we would just handle our error. So now guys, let's go ahead and call this function to see if we actually get our data loading into our UI here. And next up, we can also actually just delete this mock data and just have a blank array here so that our data is always just coming from our database now. So on your list, so find the closing bracket for that list by double clicking on the opening bracket of it. We're going to create a task modifier. So say .task, open up some brackets and say awaits fetch tasks. So let's see what we get back there. And you guys will notice that we still just have a blank screen. So that means something went wrong. So in our catch block, let's see if we can introduce a print statement to give us some idea of what's happening here. So I'm going to add this print statement here, fail to fetch tasks with error. And then we are going to interpolate our error with this notation here. And let's go ahead and drag our console up. And you guys will notice that we get an error message here. So could not find public function for tasks.get. So we definitely ran these commands. I believe the problem is a location with where we have our TypeScript file defining this function. So we need to go back to Finder, guys, and take this tasks.ts file and drag it up into our Convex folder here. So now that we have that, it will be able to properly read that function and define that query. So we should be able to go back to our preview now and see if we can just maybe hit the play button down at the bottom there, or to restart the preview. You can just highlight any piece of code, hit Command X to cut it, and then paste it back in, and it will regenerate your preview. And look at that, guys. That is incredible. We are successfully fetching that data from our database and displaying it in our application. And guys, this has real-time update functionality available to us as well. So here's what I mean by that. To see this working in real time, let's go ahead and build and run our application to an actual device. So you're going to hit Command R, or you could alternatively go up to the upper left here and hit this play button. And you should have a device selected from this drop-down menu. I currently have the iPhone 16 Pro selected. You guys could select any one of these iPhones as your target destination for running our project here. So we should see now that I have an actual simulator up and running. So this is different from my preview in that it's like an actual device that we're running the application on. You guys could see here, I could hit the home button and then go ahead and launch my application back there again. So we see our items here in the actual device. Let's go ahead and open up Google Chrome and go to our database dashboard. Oops. So we can see here that this is our data, and let me go ahead and pull the simulator back up as well and expand this window so that we can see both items. Okay. So guys, I'm going to go and modify one of these items. I'm just going to go ahead and delete let's see if we could change is completed to true for integrate convex, because we've done that now. So let's go and hit enter to save and check that out. You guys will notice that that check mark showed up there right away. So cool. And guys, let's see if we can delete an item. So let's say I don't want to go to the grocery store anymore. Let's go ahead and delete that and pay attention to the device here. We delete that and boom, it just automatically updates right away. That's so cool. So we basically have a fully functioning backend that we set up completely from our machine. We didn't have to set up a server-side API with something like Firebase or Supabase or AWS or anything like that. So we can see just how powerful of a tool Convex is and how much easier it can make our lives as developers when we need to stand up some sort of backend. So guys, that's essentially just scratching the surface of what you can do with Convex. You can also have server-side functions, you have file storage, and a bunch of other stuff. Make sure you guys check out their documentation as well as their website to get a full sense of everything that you can do with their services and features. So hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. We have an awesome to-do app that we just built in less than like 25 minutes with a fully functioning back end. So like I said, hope you enjoyed the tutorial. This is Stefan here saying peace out. Thanks for watching.